In 1994, Hollywood released the movie Forrest Gump, and in this Academy Award winning film, Tom Hanks played a man with a room temperature IQ who, through a series of flukes, winds up meeting with the president and interacting in several pivotal events in American history. Now, Forrest Gump was a tall tale, but in the movie Forrest Gump, the Forrest Gump character winds up starting his own business, the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. Now, Forrest Gump was a guy with a 60 IQ, which is borderline borderline mentally disabled, or as some people would call mentally retarded. And I'm looking at this and saying, we have Forrest Gump, a fictional character with who is has a 60 IQ, who was borderline mentally retarded, and he has started his own business. Yet we have Negroes such as your Umar Johnsons, your Claude Andersons, and other assorted, well-educated Negroes with doctorates who haven't even thought of starting a Kool-Aid stand. And on top of it, our women, who are supposed to be the most educated in the world, where are their businesses? With all of this education and all of this knowledge, you would think the African American community would be a thriving place with its own vibrant economy. No, not even with all these people with these doctorates, master's degrees, um, and other assorted college degrees do we have this type of community. Instead, we still have the poorest community in the land. And the reason why the black community is poor, in spite of all of these people having all of this education, is not the education itself; it's the way these Negroes think. And the Negro's mentality, sadly, is go work for someone else instead of starting your own business. Every other ethnic group, from Hispanics to Asians to even Africans, have a mindset of getting their own business. The Negro, instead, has the mindset of, I'm going to get a job. And they think that getting a job is just the end all to everything, and that once they get a job, they'll be okay. And they're not thinking, that a job is just a place where you go to get skills. See, everybody else understands that you only take jobs that allow you to build the skills to build a business. But the Negro thinks he gets a job and works there until he is retired. And as long as you work for somebody else, you're living life on their terms and doing things their way. And this is something the Negro just does not understand. They think that, taking these few crumbs from the table is the best thing. And this is not how men are supposed to live, men and women are supposed to live. You can have more than this if you go out and apply yourself. And the sad part is, many Negroes just don't want to apply themselves. They just don't want to step up, and they don't want to take the risks. They want something that's safe, secure, easy, and a steady paycheck. But the whole thing with the whole steady paycheck is, again, you're living life on somebody's terms, and you have to be dictated to. And when you're being dictated to on a job, you pretty much have to deal with a whole lot of people's baggage and a lot of people's nonsense. Whereas when you own a business, you're the one in charge and you're the one doing things. Yes, you're going to be running into obstacles and challenges, but at the end of the day, you wind up owning something and controlling something. But I just find it sad that here we have all these people with doctorates, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and not a single one of these Negroes owns a business. Yet they want to sit here and, have these roundtables and these summits where they talk about the black community getting itself together. Well, how can the community get itself together? What kind of model can they learn from these people when not a single one of them owns a business or it even understands how a business works? I mean, most of these people usually work for somebody else, and this is the sad part with most black people is not many people work on their own. And all these people talk about building, but they have no understanding of how difficult a process it is. And usually, what I found when I started my SJS Direct imprint back in 2009 was that it doesn't take a lot of money to start a business. This is something that many black people just don't get. I was reading about guys like Jeff Bezos from Amazon. He started his business out of a garage. The Apple computer people started their business out of a garage. Um, and many others started their businesses right out of their own homes. And they only started it with a couple of $100, like I did with SJS Direct. back in 2002 when I published my first book. I did it with a print-on-demand company, but I only spent $200, and it was 200 of the last 600 that I had, and I published my first book. And when I started the SJS Direct Imprint, again, it only cost me what is about $280 to publish a book. But the whole thing is that the challenge was that I had a steep learning curve in learning different skills. I had to learn how to do my own PDFs, how to do my own page layouts, and I had to understand even before then to buy the right computer so I could have the tools to build that business with. And this is something that most Negroes they think that building a business means you have to have a lot of capital. No, not at all. It means that you just have to have a passion for something you really enjoy doing, and you're going to start out with it, just as a hobby, and then eventually you'll be able to turn it into a business over time once you get a certain level of sales or build to a certain level, a certain audience. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do right now. And the whole thing is that the building process is a very, very slow process. So, and the whole thing is that all these people who talk about building, these pro blacks who talk about building, they think it's going to be an easy process. It happens, in a year or so. And I'm here to say, well, within 7 years of me building this SJS Direct Imprint, yes, I have 50 titles, but I'm still trying to build that readership, still trying to build that audience, and I'm still working towards one of my ultimate goals, which is to have a best-selling novel and a book that does over 1 million sales, and that takes time. I've learned a lot of things over the last 7 years about publishing and book promotion and cover design, and I had to learn all those things on my own. Now, I knew some things coming in, but I learned to learn a lot just, trial and error process. And I learned about, page layouts, page formatting, again, cover design. And it's a long process. And a lot of people think that you're just going to come on right out of the gate producing perfect products, and that's just not the case. A lot of guys, they will come in like that, but then when it's time for them to produce new titles, they run into problems. And this is what happens in many cases. What happens is they may come out with a best-selling book at first, and then later on, because they haven't learned the craft of publishing and they haven't learned the basic skills of it, they can't produce that second book or that third book or that fourth book. And I had to learn, this long process on my own, trial and error, and that's how you really build a business. And people, a lot of pro blacks and other black people always come in talking about building. They have no understanding of how that process works. They think that it's going to just happen overnight, that it's going to be easy, and it's not going to be easy at all. I mean, you're going to have rough periods. Like last year, I had a really really rough 2014 because I had some really slow sales. A couple of books that I had thought were going to do well didn't do well, and that's part of the business. And what in many cases these people who talk about building, they would have given up, but I had to persevere because when you have a business, you have to try to move through those rough, slow waters and try to keep your business moving. You have to just keep going so that you can go out of that rough period and move into a better period, sales wise and business wise. And then also another component of it is you have to be able to build that network of contacts and also build a network of readers that will continue buying your product and continue supporting your product, because what you're doing really is building a brand and building and trying to build a relationship with an audience. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing these videos these days, because I really want to build an audience for my books, and I also want to let readers know who I am and connect with me and see that there's a face behind the products at SJS Direct, these books back here, and that there's someone who really is going out here writing these stories and trying to relate to the reader, and is making every effort to reach out to them. But what I find is that we have all these educated people, yet we're the poorest people in the world, and we continue to be the poorest people in the world because our approaches do not fit for building economic wealth. A lot of us, we're still thinking about getting jobs, and a lot of us we have no idea what those who talk about building businesses have no idea what goes into building a business. They think it's something you just open a store, but they don't understand that there's a lot of planning that goes behind building a business. When I came in the SJS, when I started thinking about doing this business, I was actually 17 years old. And I had a mission back then to say I wanted to create positive stories about the African American experience. And I had to learn over time the skills that I would need to learn how to publish all these titles and many more over the last couple of years. It took me, since I was 17, I'm about 41 right about now, it took me almost 20 years for me to learn what I needed to learn and to raise the capital to do it because I had to come out of my own pocket. The whole thing is that a lot of people think that you have to go to a bank to get a loan. No, you don't have to do any of that. If you want to start a business, again, you just start it out of your home as a hobby, and eventually, if the audience likes it, it'll continue to build and build momentum, and you'll eventually be able to turn it into a full legitimate business, and that takes time. And a lot of people just don't want to invest the time or the money. They think the whole thing is that they have the money right in their pocket, but they don't want to spend it on that. I mean, in order for me to publish my second book, which was Cassandra Cookbook, back in 2008, I did that within the first 90 days of my civil service job, and in order to do that, I didn't eat any lunches. I didn't buy any snacks. I didn't buy a lot of things. I made sacrifices so I could set that goal, meet that goal, and publish that second book. And the same thing when I really started the SJS Direct Imprint in 2009 with the publication of the All About Maryland book. Um, I had made more sacrifices. There was a lot of stuff that I really wanted to buy. I really wanted a cell phone many years ago, and I decided not to buy that cell phone so that I could have this book in print and I could start this SJS Direct Imprint. And if you really want something, you're going to make sacrifices for it. I remember um, in order to do the cover for the ISIS Wrath of the Cyber Goddess last year when the Kickstarter failed, I went in my closet, went into my toy collection, and I started selling toy catalogs and other collectibles I had. I even sold a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pie wrapper I had. And I sold all that stuff so I could pay for this book cover and hire this professional artist to do it. But if you really, and because I really wanted something, it showed me that you were willing to let stuff go in order to get what you need right now. And I had a lot of stuff that I really liked, but I realized that there was things that I wanted to do right now, and I had to sacrifice those things in order to get what I need right now. And this is just something that many of your armchair intellectual Negroes just aren't going to talk about. They'll sit there and go into these long discussions about building and starting businesses. They don't understand that in order to get something, you're going to have to give up something. And I had to give up a lot of stuff in order to get what I needed. I mean, in order to get the tools that I needed, like the laptops and the and other things, I had to stop eating lunches. Had to stop. Didn't buy any fancy clothes too much. There were things that I just had to do in order to get this business off the ground, and that's something that a lot of black people, what I'm seeing, they just don't want to do that. They don't want to make those sacrifices, and they don't want to let things go like that. They just want to be able to say, okay, I got this. I want to build something, but as long as somebody else fronts the money, then sorry, it's okay. But that's just not how it goes. You can't expect somebody to do for you unless you start thinking about doing for yourself. And when you do for yourself, you're going to notice a big difference in your way you're thinking and your attitude. Because when I think about, here was Forrest Gump. Here is a mentally disabled man, and they have a movie with him having a business. And then I think about, your Umar Johnsons and your Claude Andersons and all these other, educated Negroes, and not a single one has a business. That's just pretty sad. I mean, we have some of the most educated people in the black community, yet not a single one of us has a business or a mission or a direction or even knows what to do. I mean, we talk about concepts like group economics and, you talk about building businesses, but they'd have no understanding of what goes into those terms and what that relates to it. And I had to learn, and I've been learning, over the last 6, 7 years that this building that people talk that they love to just brag and talk about, It's a lot more that goes into it, and it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of pain, and you start out losing a lot more in the beginning than you win, and it's a lot of struggle in order to make that progress. And this is just something that your Negro doesn't understand regarding these concepts. They love to sit there and talk about these concepts, on panels and on radio shows. But when you're in the trenches and you actually have to do it, it's a different story. And this is just something I had to learn. I've learned, being in those trenches, having to spend money on things like, Harlem book fairs, and then coming out at a loss, or launching books and then having some of them not do well in the marketplace, or just having promotions that just didn't work, or having to deal with people in Facebook groups who want to come at you with a bunch of rules and stipulations. This is all part of the whole business process. And when you're building, it's again, you have to deal with setbacks, and then you have to find solutions for those setbacks. You have to find ways to solve problems, so that you can achieve your goals. Like again, with the Kickstarter that I had that failed last year, I had to find another way to get the money to do that cover. And again, it's all about, when you have businesses, you just can't give up, because this is something that is not just a way for you to make a living. It's your passion, it's your heart, and it's something that you put a part of yourself into, and that's why it means something to you, because you're putting a part of you into it. And this is what I do with all my books, back here, like these. I put a lot of myself into these stories. I put a lot of heart into these stories. I put a lot of passion in these stories. I want my readers to have the best reading experience possible. This is why I work so hard, to put very, very good stories out here. And I make every effort to try to reach readers so they can see that there's a different type of African American experience out there. And there are different stories regarding the African American experience out there, because I really want people to have, better understand that there are diverse images regarding the African American experience and African American culture, and that there isn't just one narrative. But when I hear all this talk about business, I see that a lot of African Americans just don't understand what these concepts are. Again, they're coming at it, as I've said for many videos, from a very childlike level, and they're not coming at it, you know, from a professional level. I've been doing business for the last 6 years, and I've learned a lot, and I'm still looking to learn more. Um, but we look at it, and I go, everybody looks for a job, but the whole point of having a job is so that you can have the capital to build your own business and build your own business infrastructure. If you have a job, you want to save up to build that capital towards that. But the whole thing is that a lot of African Americans, especially Negroes, have this consumer mentality, and they always think about, social currency and what will get them points with people, and not really that if you want to really build something that will last, you're going to have to make those sacrifices, and you're going to have to let go of a lot of the social currency and being cool in the short run in order to have something that's lasting in the long run. That's all I have to say for this video. You can find all my books on Amazon.com. Just click the link in the description box. Several, like the Thetas here, are available on Kindle Unlimited, and you can borrow them if you have Amazon Prime for free. This summer's big event is the Isis East Eden crossover, and that's featured here in these two books with covers by hero business artist Bill Welko, Isis Night of the Vampires and East Eden Undercover. These are great books for tweens and teens. It's action-packed African American fantasy fiction featuring the goddess next door and the devilish diva. Both stories are single and self-contained, but they both cross over to form one big event. And if you want them, they're also on Kindle Unlimited, and you can borrow them, but you can also buy them in paperback. Um, and that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.